Pad Thai. I don't know what that translates to, and right now I don't care, because it's absolutely delicious, and my version is quick and simple. And with the $15 we save on takeout, we could buy, like, I don't know, a carton of eggs at the grocery store. To the kitchen. Alrighty, so I like to start with our sauce because I like to give it some time to mellow out and kind of let the flavors marry. So right now, I'm going to pour in the base of our sauce, which is fish sauce, aka nakmum, and that's exactly what it is. It's basically like a liquid condiment fish sauce. It's salty, it's fishy, but it actually adds tremendous flavor to this dish. Speaking of tremendous flavor, this is tamarind pulp, slightly sweet, but mostly sour. You can also find it in its liquid form, but for this, I just gave it a quick blend with a little bit of water and then gave it a quick strain, just get any of the seeds out of it. A little bit goes a very long way, looking super yummy so far. For more acidity now, I'm going to throw in some rice wine vinegar, and it doesn't have to be too much, and for my third acidity, I'm going with a half of a lime. 3 different kinds of acid. You could probably get away with 2 out of the 3. The tamarind is definitely a staple, but I just like a little bit of the rice wine vinegar as well as the fresh lime juice. This dish is all about balance. With all that sour, we're going to need some sweet. Traditionally, this is done by just regular old sugar. I like to use honey because I don't have to use as much of it, and it just balances out the sweetness very nicely, but use whatever you prefer. This is not traditional. I like to just squeeze in a little bit of sriracha directly into my sauce. Traditionally, people just use sriracha or some kind of heat as a garnish, but I like to get a little bit just into my sauce and then give that a really nice whisk. You got to taste it for all that different kind of flavor just to make sure that it's balanced out. There's a lot of different flavors competing in here, and we just want to make sure that they're kind of harmonious, unlike you and cousin Eugene fighting for the last slice of pizza. Once you taste it and it tastes right to you, I like to get it in the fridge for about 20 minutes to a half hour just to kind of mellow out and let the flavors marry and give it a quick shake, because why not? It should have the perfect balance of being salty, sweet, and slightly fishy in a good way. If it tastes good before it goes on our noodles, it's going to taste good after we actually put it into them. Speaking of them, these are our rice noodles. They're super thin. They almost feel like plastic and like really hard, but also super thin. You never want to boil these. All you have to do is get some really nice warm water and pour it over your noodles and let the warm water do the work. You just want to make sure that they're fully submerged. It really doesn't have to be that hot. It should be a temperature where you're comfortable getting your hands in there. I'm using tongs because I'm being a diva right now for some reason, but you just want to get your hands in there, making sure that the noodles aren't sticking to each other. It only takes about 10 minutes or so in the hot water, so you can just let those sit on the side. Do not get rid of the water. Now here's where things get fast and furious. This is designed to be cooked super quickly in a super hot wok. I'm just using a deep pan, which works fine for me, but you want to make sure that you have all of your ingredients ready to go beforehand. Starting with our peanuts. These are just whole unsalted peanuts in a very hot pan, and I just keep them moving as to give them a very nice toast. You'll see the color and you'll smell the amazing peanutty toasted smell, and that's when you know to get them off the heat. Put them to the side, give them a nice chop, or break them up in a plastic bag with a mallet, whatever gets them the size that you're looking for. Now we'll get some oil into that very same hot pan, and I'm going to start with chicken thighs. You could use whatever you want. I'm not going with any shrimp in this dish today, so I'm just going to do some chicken thighs here, cut up into very small pieces, seasoned with pepper and just a tiny bit of salt because our sauce is very salty, so I'm just going to be very careful with the salt. But you just want to brown these off really quickly, put them to the side, get some fresh oil if needed. I still have plenty left over. I'm going to add a couple fat tablespoons of garlic, which is totally traditional, and ginger, which is not. I just love ginger in pretty much everything, so I can't resist it in this dish. Now it's tofu time. You want to use a firmer, dry variety, not the super wet stuff. I like to just cut it up into small bite-sized pieces so it browns very nicely and it's the right size within the pad thai. This is very hot, so if you're worried about burning your garlic or your ginger, you can always add those after you start browning your tofu or leave them in bigger chunks. But once these are browned off, let's get our chicken back in the pan. And oh look, our noodles got nice and puffy. They really soaked up that water and got nice and hydration. So I'm just going to scoop these out of the water and into the pan, giving them a nice toss to make sure that they're really picking up all that nice flavor within the pan and everything's getting to know each other. Make sure not to overcrowd your pan. You can see that this thing is pretty chock full, but I just got away with it. Now I'm going to push some to the side to make room for our eggs. And again, this is super hot, so just a little bit of oil if needed, but crack them right into there. I'm going with 3 eggs, probably could get away with somewhere between 3 and 4, hitting them with a little bit of pepper. And I'm going to let them fry a little bit, and once the yolk starts to set up just a little bit, that's when I'm going to give them a nice scramble. Again, not really mixing them into the noodles. Once I have a nice scramble on them, that's when I want to toss them because I want little bite-sized pieces of scrambled egg mixed throughout the pad thai. Now our noodles are screaming for sauce, so I'm going to let the sauce sit out of the fridge, get to room temperature, and then pour that in. Give this a quick mix. You want to make sure you're not putting too much. Definitely want to make sure that you have enough to really coat the noodles. If not, you can always add more sauce, but my tip if you're right there is to take some of the water that you cook the noodles in and just kind of sprinkle that in. It just really helps kind of develop the sauce and give it a nice flavor. It's kind of like whenever I make pasta, I use some of the cooking water in that because it's starchy, it's got flavor, and it just helps me build a nice sauce. Same kind of concept. So now Now, after adding in the water, I will turn off the heat and throw in some scallions. Classically, this is done with garlic chives, but I could not find them, so scallions are a nice substitute. I like to leave them nice and big, as well as our fresh, crunchy bean sprouts. Again, the heat is off, so the residual heat is just going to kind of help once you're folding these in, kind of cook everything through, but still keep a nice crunch and freshness. Then I'll get in all of our peanuts in there, saving a little bit for garnish. Give this dish one last final taste before plating, and then plate away. Obviously, that is a huge batch of pad thai, a pound of noodles, not to mention everything that went into it. This is just my own hefty personal serving. I practice safe garnishing with some fresh lime wedges, as well as some fresh bean sprouts for some extra crunch. I'll throw some more nuts on top and some scallions on top as well for a little bit more of a nice oniony bite. The acidity of the lime really helps set this off. You can hit this with a little bit more hot sauce at this point, but it's got a nice kick for me, so I'm going to dive into it. And this was absolutely delicious, and things got messy even without trying to use chopsticks, and you don't need to see that part. But what I will tell you is the balance was absolutely amazing. That's why I like to use the variety of all those different sources of sour and acidity, because it just makes such a perfect sauce. From the tofu to the chicken to the different vegetables in there, there's just so much flavor going on in here, and if you get it to balance perfectly, it's just a phenomenal dish. Not bad for a jabroni who's never been to Thailand. Nothing wrong with getting pad thai from your favorite neighborhood spot, but this way you can really stock up on a ton of ingredients and make pad thai for days. Try this recipe and it'll have you saying, fishy.